this is really a retention strategy to retain the employees that you need to continue to build your company and to grow it into the future.
Hey, it's Nikki Llewellyn Gregory, and you're on Gut Plus Science. You're in for a fast-paced, storytelling, action item-rich leadership growth experience. I hope you make this podcast a habit. I consider it a leadership mentoring tool. Learning together makes us better together, and that is how we change the world around us. Let's get to it.
Hey, it's Nikki back on Gut Plus Science. Today, we're talking about something every leader needs to take seriously: supporting families at work. This isn't just a being nice thing, it's about helping with performance, retention, building stronger culture. When we, as employees of any kind, feel supported as parents, spouses, caregivers, we definitely would show up more engaged, more loyal, and more productive. The workplace has become very much, this centralized, like, be human, be you, and our families, those all around us that surround us outside of the work, we're with them all the time. So work embracing that is really important. My guest today knows this better than most. Paul Sullivan spent 2 decades writing for the New York Times before founding the Company of Dads, a movement and a platform dedicated to helping companies who truly support working parents and caregivers, especially the often overlooked lead dads. So, Paul, I'm so excited that you're here. I want to start with your story. What led you to leave the New York Times and create the Company of Dads?
Thanks for having me on, Nikki. That's there's a one word answer and a more complicated answer. The one word answer is COVID, and the more complicated answer is, writing for the New York Times was my childhood dream. I grew up very lower middle class in Western Massachusetts, and I hoped that one day I could write for the Times, not really knowing how I'd get there, and it worked out. Shortly after I got married, I became a columnist in 2008. We had a daughter in 2009. My first book came out in 2010, did really well. My second daughter was born in 2012. And literally, Nikki, my life was better than I ever could imagined it. And my wife in 2013 said, I want to start my own firm. She works in asset management. She wants to start her own firm. I said, you got to do it. Like, literally, this is way better than I ever met. And I had a Labrador. I mean, like, that's like the best dog of best dogs. And she said, okay, but I got to be honest with you, it's going to be really tough in the beginning. I'm going to need help with the kids. And I said, don't worry, I'll become the lead dad. And that became our sort of inside joke. I had read it, I'd read the term in a piece in the Atlantic Monthly, and I had never really heard anybody else talk about it. And I love the idea of lead dad. And what it meant was I became the go-to parent. I stepped up, I carried the mental load, I organized everything. I became the playdate dad, the birthday party dad, the doctor's office dad. And it was, there are lots of fun moments, lots of absurd moments. They'd always call my wife first and then they get to me. But for the most part, I was what I call an undercover lead dad, because I didn't see any other moms in my town doing what I was doing, or any other dads. I saw lots of moms, saw lots of nannies, lots of au pairs, but no other dads. And at work, I was still working full time at the New York Times. I didn't really want to jeopardize my career. I didn't know what would happen if I put my hand up and said, I'm the lead dad. And things kept going well. My second book came out in 2015. Our third daughter was born in 2017. I started writing about golf as a sort of a side hustle at the Times in 2019. Things were going great. And then in 2020, like so many people in America, in the world, we all went virtual. And the support systems that I had that I had depended on quietly as an undercover lead dad disappeared. Those were mainly school and summer camp. Summer camp wasn't going to happen. And at the time, my dad was coming down to help us a lot. But my dad has health problems. He got very nervous. He stayed in his home about 2 hours away from us. And I said, what am I going to do? Like, this is as busy as I've ever been at the New York Times. My wife is super busy in what she's doing. I don't have any answers. I'll go to the source of all knowledge in the universe. And we all know that the source of all knowledge in the universe is Google. And I go to Google, and Google tells me that there's nothing for dads like me. Tons of stuff for moms. All the stuff for parents is really for moms. Anything for dads is dads in some sort of distress. They're divorced. They drink too much. They have bad relationships with their daughters. It's like the dismal D's. Like, everything was bad. And I thought, I can nerd out. You can see in the background on golf or books. Those are my two passions, and I can nerd out in so many different ways. Why isn't there anything for dads like me? And the first thing I did is what you do as a business columnist. I said, how many guys out there are lead dads? And that was the first aha moment. Really easy to find. U.S. Census Bureau of Labor Statistics, Pew, about 25 million men in the United States fit my definition of lead dad, and that's about a third of all fathers. And I said, wow, that's a big number. And most of those guys were in their 30s. And I thought, okay, they're driving some growth. And the second thing I did was, well, let me talk to senior female executives with kids. Let me see if they have, stories around this. And they pretty much fell into three categories. One was, yes, that was my husband. He was so instrumental in my career. He did X for a living, but his friends gave him all kinds of, they made fun of him. They called him, Mr. Mom. They called him the house husband. But he had a career, I had a career. It was great. But guess what? We didn't really tell anybody at work because we didn't know what they would say. We didn't know if his job would be impacted. I didn't really want to talk about children at work. That was group one. At the other extreme, group three was women who ended up getting divorced, whose husbands could never figure this out. They never knew who to talk to in the workplace. So they just hunkered down, did fine financially, but they wished that this hadn't happened. And then the sweet spot was people in the middle there. And they said, you know what? My husband's great. We had a great time when we first met, but he doesn't really do all the things that I thought he did. And now that we're trapped at home, I can see what he does and what he doesn't do. I could use a lead dad boot camp. And really, that was kind of the genesis of it. And I thought, okay, what is this going to be? I knew media, I knew community. And from the books that I'd written in the past, I knew that there was a need for companies to have speakers come in and talk about this. And I was also pretty sure, you talked in the intro about how we thought of ourselves before as workers. I went to graduate school at the University of Chicago. It's one of their famous economists, a guy named Milton Friedman, who always talked about, the business of business is business, and essentially like show up as the model worker. Don't talk to me about your family. But if anything, we all remember to COVID, suddenly all these people were popping into our Zoom screens, and it wasn't a big deal. Pre-COVID, if your kid, your spouse, anybody jumped behind you in a meeting, it was the end of the world. There was this famous guy, BBC dad. Yeah, we all remember BBC but that was only like 18, 19 months before COVID, and how quickly everything changed. And so I had a sense from all the corporate speaking I'd done, being a business columnist, that even really well-meaning companies wouldn't be able to adapt quickly enough to meet how parents and caregivers were going to want to work and live differently post-COVID. You couldn't just put everything back into the box and pretend that this hadn't happened. And I knew that there'd be a role there for me to sort of connect with companies and help them work on their messaging, help them work on, the benefits they were offering, help them really we talk about making small changes that would have a big impact. So I went for the one word answer to the, many thousand word answer, but thanks for asking that question.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you think about the companies that have these big hearts, there is a powerful story of the journey for the why of the company. And yeah, that just is speaking loud right now. And particularly with where the world is today, with more and more leaders understanding the importance of supporting the whole human. We hear that a lot. Gut Plus Science, I consider this a mentoring channel where we bring guests on to help the leaders that are listening who are on a pursuit to create the most meaningful work experience for their people. And with that, in today, right, and a lot of how we got here, including the whole human and what is happening in their lives is so important. And I want to shine a light for a minute on, you probably got a lot of research and stories. So the quantitative and qualitative data that you could summarize for us on why workplaces supporting families today is necessary.
So, yeah, I mean, the best data out there is from Saramount. Saramount does the 100 best companies for working parents. J&J has been number one on that list for a long time. Merck is number two. And what do? They ask their employees what they need, and they realize that even if you have an enormous suite of benefits, and even if some of those benefits are only used by a small percentage of the people in your company, that they exist matters. And this is not just, gone are the days where if you offered someone a 401k and health insurance, they would be happy. They want aftercare. They would like to have help with their college planning. Bright Horizons is one of the partners of the company Dads. They do a lot of work around this. And it's companies realizing that you have to offer more, but that's only the start. That's the sort of Paramount has all the data on this. They know that, you're not offering 8 weeks of paid parental leave anymore for the birth of a child and going to make it on the top list. The best companies are offering 20 weeks. They're offering 24 weeks. They're moving toward equitable leave for both the birthing and non-birthing parents, and both for moms and dads. But that's the benefit. Where we come in is the messaging of the benefit, because even companies that have an incredible suite of offerings, they don't spend the little bit of extra money. They could spend tens of millions of dollars creating this suite, but they don't spend the little bit of extra money to help message those benefits. And I think that's where the biggest conflict is today. I can think of two gigantic investment banks that everybody in the world knows. I won't name and shame them here, but everyone in the world knows. And I know a very senior executive at one of them who left. And he left not because he wanted to leave, not because he was looking for another job, not because he got tired of the commute or even the requirement to be in the office 5 days a week. He left because his mother-in-law had a stroke, had to be rushed to the hospital. And at first, this bank said, okay, take all the time you want. We put family first. Family matters. Take all the time you want. So that first week, he was at home. His wife was with her mom. He was there with their kids. He was still logging on to meetings, still doing all the work he needed to do. It was fine. Second week, hey, how are things going? Still not great. My mother-in-law had a stroke, and I was okay, fine. Third week, hey, this isn't me, but there's been some talk in the office. We were really wondering, like, when are you gonna come back? And he's like, well, my mother-in-law, she had a stroke. She almost died. She's in the hospital. By the fourth week, they're like, hey, buddy, you got to come back. People are wondering where you are. And he said, look, I'm on every meeting. I'm doing all the things I need to. And this is a guy making a 7-figure salary, been there for 10, 11, 12 years. That broke the bond that he had with that company. He heard family first. He hears take all the time you want. And he ended up getting another job. Job pays him more money, but he wasn't looking for more money. He loved the job he had. And what did that company lose? They didn't just lose a high performer. They lost all of that institutional knowledge. You can't just replace that person the next day. You could get an equally qualified person in that seat, but they won't have that institutional knowledge. But it also has this radiating effect. Other people who know him say, wait a second, he didn't leave because he was looking for a job. He didn't leave because a recruiter came to him. He left because we said we care about family. And then our words did not back up this amazing suite of benefits of it. So that's really where that's my sweet spot for helping companies, is to make sure that messaging is correct, and to make sure that, they're not dependent on whether or not an employee wins or loses the manager lottery.
Wow, what a powerful story. I was just thinking about a recent guest. It's been a couple months, but a lady that shared about the power of running some surveys to really better understand the demographics of the team members. So to get that like deep dive data on, from male, female to ages to where do they live and all that. And then to ask open-ended questions about things that were missing or was needed. And they found from this study that over 65%, if I'm remembering this right, something like that, over 65% of the employees were in a caregiver role, like as the sandwich generation, if you will. And that data matched with the asks for flexibility, more flexibility to be able to do their job from other places, to be able to support because of the caregiver needs. They rolled out a brand new like workplace strategy. And the engagement, she was reflecting on like a 2 years later, what the engagement numbers in their regular like Gallup survey, it was a crazy difference. And my point in sharing that is there's no two workplaces that are exactly the same, right? Not even close to exactly the same, because they're different people. And we have to understand our people and their unique needs to really cater to that. So didn't know if you wanted to comment on that before we continue to go.
It doesn't surprise me at all. All the data shows that in our working lives, upwards of 90% of us will have some sort of care emergency. So a lot of what we do at the company of dads is we couch our suggestions as care policies. So we talk about parenting, but anything you're doing for lead dads, for working moms, you can also do for caregivers. So we talk about the 3 C's: That is, offering people care days, sort of a day that you can elect to take for a care emergency. We talk about having care confabs. We talk about coming together and being open about the care requirements that are on their time right now. And we talk about care shifts, which is some allowing people for a certain period of time to opt into a certain number of finite hours a day that you'll work synchronously. For example, 9 to 3 every day, knowing that you're just not going to work a 6 hour shift, knowing that you're going to do all the other asynchronous work at different times. And that has had a tremendous benefit from the companies that have adopted it. Because if you take the long view, if you say, like, okay, this is a high performer, or let's just say this is a medium performer. They don't all have to be high performers, but this person is doing an essential job and he or she does it to the best of his or her ability day after day after day. Losing this person would cost us in all the data $150,000, $200,000 to replace this person. What if we accept that this care emergency, this care requirement is going to be very distracting to this person for a week, a month, whatever. But this person has been at the company for 5 years, 6 years. We see this person staying for another 7, 8, 9 years, during which time he or she's going to do tremendous work. What if we give this person grace? What if we go to this person proactively and say, look, we have this offering. How about you elect to work a care shift now? Or do you need to elect, we have, 10 care days that you can use, no questions asked. Would you like to take that? And the very act of doing that strengthens the bond between manager and employee, between company and worker. And this, on the parenting side, Boston College, their Center for Work and Family, did research on this going back to the 2010s. And this is where they encourage companies to offer leave to fathers as well as to mothers. Now, it wasn't equitable, not even close, but let's say women back then got 12 weeks, 15 weeks, not a tremendous amount, but that's what they got. They would give men 4 weeks, 5 weeks. And they really, the Boston College side, they really pushed their sponsors, top 100 companies in the country, to adopt this. And those that did, afterwards they came back to the guy who was in charge of the institute and said, you know what, I gotta be honest with you. The only reason we agreed to give leave to men is because we didn't think any of them would take it. Well, not only did they take it, but in the Gallup surveys that we ran in subsequent years, they talked about how impactful that was to them. And they talked about how that strengthened their loyalty to the company. And so that's giving somebody 3-4 weeks to be with their child when the child is born, to be with their spouse or partner when the child is born. That was transformative to what they would do at work. They came back more refreshed, their head was clear, but they had this loyalty. Nobody leaves a job for a 3% raise. 30%, you're going to walk across the street and say, sorry, it's 30% more. The 3%, they're leaving because they can't stand their manager. They can't stand the policies. They can't stand how things are being messaged. So when you think in these terms, that example you gave is great. When you think in these terms, this is really a retention strategy to retain the employees that you need to continue to build your company and to grow it into the future.
And I just want to go back and reiterate the importance of alignment and who we say we are from a brand messaging standpoint, internally to our team members, externally to attract new hires and showcase our companies. Is it really living? Is it a really living thing? Because people today are looking for that. They're assessing that. And when we don't have that alignment of we say this, but we don't do this. It's like the whole walk the walk thing. It breaks trust and they're going to look for better ways, or they're going to put in a lot less to, do the work because the energy and the fire is not there.
Well, let me just add something to that. I'll tell you this. I'll end the story that I told you about the friend at the big investment bank who left. He went to a big hedge fund, and quite literally, the hedge fund that he went to, which almost doubled his salary, they literally said, "We don't care about work-life balance. You need to be here all the time, and if you're not, we're going to be calling you." And however horrified people may be hearing that, there was something so refreshing and so honest about that. They say, like, we're not going to lie to you and say there's any sort of work-life balance here. You're all in, for which we're paying you a tremendous amount of money, and you can either take it or leave it. So you kind of know what you're getting when you sign up for it. The problem is that cognitive dissonance. If you work for a company and they say, we're great, we care about you, you're part of our family, and then they don't. That's when people say they want to leave you.
I'm really glad that you made that point. Clarity is key. And if we are very clear in that we are not flexible here. Thank you
We
for
don't care
saying that.
about you.
Thank you for saying that up front, and then it's your choice if you're gonna dive in and take the opportunity, right? Can't go back and say like, "Man, it sucks here." Well,
Oh,
like,
we told you what. We told you what.
yeah, I mean, they were very upfront, so that's on you, so thank you for saying that. So to take you back to an experience I had, because I wanna dig into how do we help people really take advantage of the benefits, these benefits that are aligned and companies that really care and want people to take advantage of them because they spend all this time putting them together. So, take you back. My very first professional job out of college was an employee assistance program. And our tagline at the time was we help employees have work life balance. You can come to us if you're struggling with a challenge like grief, loss, divorce, things like that. Or you can come to us and have a session, or I think up to 6 sessions if you're working on bettering yourself. So you're working to be a better parent or whatever, you would get matched with a counselor or a coach to help you with that. So it was a per employee per month model. And we wanted to see utilization at a certain number, right? To justify for the companies that their investment, was worth it. I don't know if this is the number, but I'm just going to give you an example. I believe that the goal was to keep it above 12%, something like that. And I, as a young person coming in as a new professional, I didn't know any different. I thought this benefit was amazing, but I'm like, 12%? Why 12%? You know? And so, just going back to like a program like an EAP, Today's Better Up, Better Help, services that you bring to the table, how do you best optimize the people engaging?
That is such a great question. And I'm going to give you the answer in a couple parts. First, you know that there's a life cycle to all the benefits. When you first start at a company and you're in your 20s, you're not thinking about caregiving support. You're not thinking about a parental leave. You may not even be thinking about health insurance and signing up for it or your 401k. And these are problems that companies know. So if we take the lens and say like, okay, why do we in a company, why do we want people signing up for the 401k? Is it because we're a really good company? Maybe. Is it because we want people to save for their future so that they can require? Maybe. But the cynical view is we do this because if we don't have enough people at different earning levels contributing per the Department of Labor regulations, the most senior people are going to be dinged and they're not going to be able to contribute as much. So there's sort of an enlightened self-interest to that. That's why we push so much to get people enrolled in a 401k place. Same thing with health insurance. If we're a large company, chances are we're self-insuring. So we want to have some cost sharing with people paying some portion of their benefit, but we also want them taking advantage of wellness programs. Do we want them to take care of wellness programs because we care that they're super fit and they run marathons? Maybe, but we probably want them to take advantage of wellness programs so that they don't cost us a lot of money and go to the doctors, that they don't smoke, they don't drink too much, they don't show up at work and they're not able to do this. That's the enlightened self-interest in that. If we think of the benefits around parenting and caregiving, what is the enlightened self-interest there? The enlightened self-interest there is that if you have somebody coming to work and pretending that they're fully engaged, but they're half distracted, three-quarters distracted, completely distracted by things that are happening outside of work, they're not doing their job. It's like somebody who's texting and driving. If you're texting and driving and you pass that person on the highway, you're like, what are you doing? You can't text and drive. You're going to crash the car. You need to pay attention to what you're doing. And so this is one of the things that we talk about with companies is this is the enlightened self-interest here is you're not just showing that you're a company that cares, but you're making sure that when your employees are there, they can concentrate. And you're also, when it comes to care, you're creating a more equitable company because when you empower men to be lead dads or men to be caregivers, you're removing the gender stigma that all care is being done by women. You're showing that working moms that they have an ally in these lead dads, that caregivers can be both men and women. And you're showing those more senior managers, hey, you've got to think about you're building an equitable company for the future that you want to be resilient for the next pandemic, the next, financial crash, the next, spate of bad news. You need to make sure that you're hiring the best people, whether they're men or women. You have to get past the biases that you have that, oh, she's going to have a child. I mean, nobody ever asked me, like when I was getting a job, like, hey, Paul, just wondering, you think you're going to have a second child anytime soon? I never get that. No man in history has ever been asked that question. But when you start thinking about this, okay, I'm a leader in this company, I'm a manager, I'm going to start being open and honest about my responsibilities outside of work. We have all these examples of people who've done this. I'm going to start putting on my calendar instead of out of office, I'm gonna put, leaving early for Billy's soccer game. I'm gonna put, taking Sally to dentist at 4 o'clock. And we have all the research on this. We have all the examples that shows when leaders do this, suddenly they have more credibility with the people they're leading, and suddenly the people they lead feel that they can be more open and honest about this, and that gets everybody to relax a bit. It creates more of a trust environment, more of an environment based on outcome, not on, okay, are you here right now doing this? And when you have that enlightened self-interest view to parenting and caregiving, it's going to, see its way through the whole company and have a huge benefit.
Mm, so many great points there. I want to lean into the different types of people in the workplace today, starting with lead dads as one type, surrounding, supporting in the workplace, different profiles of people that you can help us understand today's typical unique challenges for them, and then how some of these solutions have become really meaningful benefit solutions for them, just to break down examples, but also to help our listeners understand the unique needs or challenges of these different types. So let's spend like, I don't know, I feel like you could probably go on forever about this. So maybe like 5 or 7 minutes, just kind of break down what you've learned, kind of traditional patterns and things that you see you're doing and others that are doing that are really making a meaningful difference for them.
So I guess I'll say that, knowing that in a workplace today, you could have 4 or 5 generations in the office, they're all going to have different needs. And I'm very clear to stay in the lane that I know. So I'm looking at people, in their 30s to their 60s who are on that continuum of care. And what is the biggest, and so this is actually going to probably be a much shorter answer than you think, but what is the thing that they want? They want leaders who walk the walk and talk the talk. They want to know that these benefits are there, but they want to see people taking advantage. So one of the things we do in our manager messenger training is we help with the most obvious things, because as I say, smart people say stupid things all the time. Now, stupid people say more stupid things than smart people, but smart people can sometimes say really stupid things. What do I mean by that? You go to your manager and you say, I'm pregnant. There's only one and only one correct answer, and that is congratulations. I talked to somebody a couple months ago who said, "Oh, I went to my manager and I said I'm this woman. I said I'm pregnant, and he said congratulations. I think no good. Same thing when you come to sort of a man who wants to take parental leave. If the company has a policy of 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 15 weeks, 20 weeks, doesn't matter. The person comes, you don't say, man, when I was your age, I never would have done this. I mean, I have my whole career ahead of me. Like, why would I wouldn't take that time. I mean, but no, but go ahead. If you want it, it's there. Now, the correct answer is okay, that's wonderful. Congratulations. Thank you for telling me. Here's how we're going to offboard you into your leave. Here's what you can expect or not expect when you're on leave. And here's how we're going to onboard you later on. What we require from you is that you fill out the following list so that people can take over your responsibilities when you're away, and then we'll have a way to get you back up to speed when you return. Every company can have that. This is not rocket science. We're not inventing the iPad. This is all stuff that any company can do. And many companies do have this. The problem is they haven't spent the extra money to train the managers, the frontline managers who are actually going to be communicating the policies. However well known those policies are within HR, if they haven't found a way to communicate those policies to the line, they really run the risk of having at least the demographic that I'm really focused on, go sideways or feel like, the company isn't what they thought the company was when they joined.
So what I'm hearing is supportive, not cringy. I'm gonna go for the word cringy because a couple of those examples are like, oh, my reaction, and I'm like, we all do it. We all do it. Nobody's perfect, right? But let's be a little bit more aware about what we're saying to support the whole human, and our words truly supportive. Love that. And then also, just I'm hearing when you said, "Hey, this is going to be a lot more straightforward and not going to need too much time." It's being supportive and figuring out how to communicate in a supportive way, and then having the systems ready to support the ease, very easy, standing up of that transition, right? For us to be ahead of that. And like I said, not rocket science, it's training. to help us understand and remember why we wouldn't say, well, when are you coming back? Versus congratulations or congratulations and when are you coming back? But also to have those systems ready so that both sides are empowered. We all have a role in it. It's our job as the business to have the simple plan for both sides, the company and the team member, to know the work that they have to do to make it as simple as possible. Might not be super easy, but as simple as possible.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
love that.
think about it in this way. Like, if you join a company and you have to wait 3 months before you can enroll in the 401k, and they have a match of, making it up, 5%. You realize at the 3 month time, you realize at 4 months that you missed the 3 month deadline, and you're not quite sure what to do. So you go to your manager and you say, "Hey, I've been here 4 months now," and he's, "Oh, that's wonderful, great. But I want to sign up for the 401k. What do I do?" And he doesn't say, "Oh man, why did you want that?" Or, "Hey man, you waited an extra month." He'll say, "Oh, here's what you do. Here's the email. Here's the person you contact, and then there's a whole process in place for you to sign up for your 401k, and everybody's off to the races." If we had a similar system in place for people with parenting or caregiving needs, any manager, not even the best manager, just a mediocre manager, says, "Oh, okay, I understand. Here's what you have to do." And we treat that as we would treat a 401k or adding somebody to our healthcare plan. The companies will run more smoothly, and there'll be that consistency between words and actions.
So let's say this company, a startup, obviously in the startup land, you're very conscious about resources, right? You've got a timeline to be able to get to these goals, to be able to be more flexible with the resources, but you're also very people first in your ways. How do you speak into that leader and also help team members understand that journey, right? Where it is limited resources. We want to do the best in this time and place right now. We do see the future of where we'll be and can be fully loaded with all the things you want to bring to the table. How is that done well?
It's a challenge. I'm not gonna say there's an easy way to do it. If you have a company, and we're seeing it now in the AI space, where these companies are saying, "We expect you to work 100 hours a week," and they're being transparent about it up front. It's crazy. They're gonna change the world. Whatever. Maybe they change the world. Maybe they just burn a whole bunch of people out. I don't know. But they're very upfront and transparent about it. And so you might say, as in a prospective employee, maybe that's not the place for me. Like, it is quite honest. Like, I'm not saying every company is going to be able to figure this out. Just as I don't think every man is going to become a lead dad. If it's a third of all fathers, that means 2/3 of dads are operating in a totally different way. They're what we call event dads, or they're more traditional dads. And so I think there is some of this. It can't all fall on the company. It can't all fall on the manager. Some of it is incumbent on the employee to say, is this place the right place for me to work right now? Do our values align right now? Maybe later on I want to work at a startup, or maybe this is exactly the right time that I want to work at a startup, because later on in my career, I want something that's a little more predictable and I can plan around.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that key takeaway around transparency. We've mentioned a couple of different example scenarios on, you know, if the company is super transparent about this is how we operate, even if it is kind of cringy, they're being very straight up, and it's our 50%. It's a two-parter here. Like, we choose our roles. There's other roles out there. This isn't the only one on the table, and then the company gets to be authentically and clearly who they are. I also think that the opportunity for even younger companies that might not be the fit for the person, but they are passionately leading a high growth company that just can't do all the things yet, being innovative with how to give the benefits that the people need, going back to the story around who are your people and what are they looking for right now? And maybe the ability not to work 100 hours, but to work. I actually just met this lady who has a blueprint strategy for helping people work in 25 hours a week, a job that you would normally work 40, 50, 60. And I'm so inspired by it. Our team's been going through some exercises. There are ways today, with all the opportunities we have to move faster and be efficient, that we can apply innovation. And maybe we aren't ready to be able to offer the 401k and the, very fully loaded benefit package, but we learn how to prioritize key things and not put all the things on the plate. And that buys us time back for us to be able to have flexibility. And maybe there is a side hustle that is awesome and that person loves and makes it work, right? So there's innovation to be applied. I just wanted to throw that out because you can have a heartfelt leadership position and want to offer the world, but you can't yet. But there's ways to bridge, you know? So thank you so much. Before we head into the lightning round, I know Company of Dads is your website, thecompanyofdads.com. And you've got all kinds of resources, tools, and things like that. So we'll add that to the show notes. So, our lightning round. We love to share our favorite book of all time or a favorite recent read. If you could pick one book today, what is that book that you would like to share with our leaders?
I don't want this to come across, and if anybody likes me, I don't want this to ruin it by saying something really arrogant. But there's a great Chilean author named Marcelo Serrano. Marcelo Serrano is her name, Chilean author. She's fantastic. Many of her books have been translated into English, but there's one called Para que no me olvides, and it translates as "So you don't forget me." And years ago, before I joined the New York Times, I desperately wanted to translate it, and we couldn't find a publisher for it. But it's a story of a person who has apraxia, so they're all locked in, and how they're navigating through the world, and how people see them differently, how they see the world differently, how they struggle to communicate in the way they did. And it's about a 200-page book. So any Spanish speakers out there, please pick up the book, and any non-Spanish speakers, pick up some other books by Marcelo Serrano. She's an amazing Chilean writer.
Oh, thank you for that. I know for a fact no one has mentioned that book. We've got hundreds of books on the list. I love new books to add. Thank you for that. Okay, so I heard you have 3 daughters, 3 cats, 3 dogs, 3 fish, 3 white cars, something like that. Is 3 your magic number or something?
No, 5 is my lucky number. Why would you ever think 3 is my magic number?
I don't know. I just heard about all these threes. And I might have missed something with the threes, but that's pretty cool.
It's funny story. Yeah. At one point we just looked around, and at this point we no longer we still have 3 daughters. That's good. We still have 3 dogs. That's good. And we still have 3 white cars, which is neither here nor there. But the fish died, which was probably merciful because nobody's really caring for them. And the cats, unfortunately, there are 3 cats. My youngest daughter developed allergies, probably way more than 3 allergies, since we had to rehome the cats. But we still have what we do have. We still have 3s. So.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool. And tell us about your favorite place or one of your very favorite places, Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. I've been to Florida many times and I hadn't heard of it, but tell us about this place, this special place.
Yeah, I love Ponte Vedra Beach, and it's outside of Jacksonville. So where we live in the metropolitan New York City area, it's easy to get to, and it's one of those places, so they call it the Low Country, going up there through Sea Island, up through South Carolina. And it's not your traditional Florida where it's soft sand beaches. They're big, wide beaches that are very firm. You can ride a bike on them, very tidal. And I just like it. It's a combination. You walk along the beach. It sounds so cliche, like I'm going to take a romantic walk with my wife along the beach, but we do. And the kids go there, and it's just a place we've been going for 5 or 6 years now. And I'll say why it's so special is it's the first place that my family that we found on our own. So many times when you get married, you go to the place where your wife went, or you go to the place where your husband went, or you just go to Disney because that's where the kids want to go. And this was a place that we all found together as a family. And I think that's made it even more special.
Yeah. And those special places, there's something that like pulls you into your heart and soul, right? Like it just when you get to be there, particularly with your favorite people. Well, cool. Before we go, I just want to say thank you, Paul. This has been so awesome. So many insights here. And I was not familiar with the Company of Dads until we got introduced. And I was like, this is really awesome. We need to shine a light on it. So definitely listeners, go and check out the website because it does have a ton of resources in it. And then you can reach out to Paul if you've got questions. I'm guessing, Paul, what's the best way if somebody wanted to follow up and get some advice from you or whatever?
Yeah, thank you so much, Nikki. So yeah, go to thecompanyofdads.com. There's a whole section on speaking. You can see some talks that I've given. You can easily email me from the website, or you can just find me on LinkedIn, where I'm quite active, just under Paul Sullivan.
We just left the world a little bit better. Now, go do something with it.